years ago have been really inspired by New York City, the lively discussions, and we want to contribute to that by having more of them. And tonight, I think it's going to be a really special treat. This is such a great turnout, so thank you all for coming. There will be an open bar throughout the night, and we're going to hang out and party afterwards, so at 9 o'clock, so I invite you to stick around. Young Voices, for those of you who are not aware, is a public relations firm for libertarian and conservative writers at completely no cost. So if you are one of them looking to get your start in media, please check us out. I have literature over there. Our website's on the banners, all that good stuff. Tonight's debate is being live streamed on Civil, so we are so glad to have folks tuning in as well. That's really awesome. We look forward to having this partnership and streaming all of our live streams on Civil exclusively for a month, and then we'll get them up on YouTube and all the good stuff, all the other platforms afterwards. We're going to have a very lively Q&A session tonight. Just be aware that if you ask a question, you will be on camera for the live audience. And before we get started, I am very eager to introduce, for a quick announcement, one of our good friends who runs another great debate series here in New York City, the Soho Forum, Gene Epstein.
Well, I pride myself in having inspired these wonderful guys to do debates for Young Voices. I've been running the Soul Forum since September of 2016, every single month, and I have a special offer to provide to you people. Normally, we charge $10 per student, $20 for non-students, but for all of you, if you write me at gene@thesoulforum.org, then you can get as many free tickets, up to 3, that you would like to our next debate on October 21st on Bleecker Street in downtown Manhattan with our party afterwards. The New York Times reporter David Leonhardt is going to be defending his argument against a libertarian economist. That's Monday, October 21st. Heckman has more of these, but it's gene@thesoulforum.org. Write me there and request your free tickets, and you'll get them, and I look forward to seeing you. If you go on thesoulforum.org, you'll see our other debates. In December, we're having Glenn Greenwald debating presidential immunity. That will cost you because there's only one freebie, but that's something you won't want to miss. In November as well, we're having a debate about the Milei administration, the libertarian guy who's running Argentina. But this debate on October 21st, just go over to Heckman and you can get the cards, but write down gene@thesoulforum.org or go on to thesoulforum.org to see our listings. I hope to see you there. I look forward to seeing you there, and I look forward to this evening's debate. Heckman has the cards. Heckman, here's another one for you to give out to those who want to get it, and my 60 seconds are over. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Gene. I do want to say special recognition. Gene truly is the reason we're here tonight. Matt can tell you more about that, but we were so inspired by the Soho Forum. We wanted to mimic the Soho Forum in our Young Voices way, with younger debaters debating some of the most important topics of our day. So with that, I am excited to introduce you to the MC for tonight's event, who really, after Gene, was the guy who came to us and pitched Young Voices, myself, to run this. So we are so excited to have the director of the Next Gen Debates, Hekmet Abukhater, to take over for the evening.
Thank you very much, Casey. Thank you, Casey. Thank you, Gene, of course, for inspiring this debate society. Who here is under 35? Raise of hand or shout. All right, awesome. So what we're trying to do here is, Gene, you raised your hand? I don't know if you should raise your hand. So, knock on wood. So this debate society is focused on younger generations. As you can see here, we have 2 young debaters who are making waves in their communities online. And we want to bring these debate topics that pertain to our generation, topics about foreign policy, topics about social policy, economic policy, these issues that really pertain to our generation. Are we going to have Social Security when we retire? Are we going to be sent to the draft? Are we going to be drafted to go fight somewhere we don't want to fight? These are the questions that matter to us, but we don't have a lot of authority in addressing our interests in these conversations, and that's why we had the idea to launch this debate society, 35 and under exclusively for our debaters, and ideally we would have an audience of young people who want to challenge themselves to come here and think about new ideas that they are often not exposed to. So with that said, let me introduce our two debaters, and let me take my quick note here. And as I do so, let me explain to you how tonight's evening will go. Here we go. So the Soho Forum is an Oxford-style debate society, and we are trying to mimic it in the same voting and debating style. These are our two faces, myself and Casey. And these are our two debaters. So our first debater for the proposition of the resolution, which is the American Communist Party offers a positive alternative to the current duopoly system. So the duopoly system, the Republicans and Democrats in our American politics, and we have the American Communist Party that was just launched a couple of months ago with its representatives here on stage with us today. So for the proposition, we have Haz Al-Din, who is an American political theorist. He is the chairman of the executive committee of the American Communist Party and one of its founding members. And he is the leader of what is called as the Infrared Collective, which is a Marxist-Leninist ideology group. They have a huge presence online, and they are widely known. And for the opposition, we have Benjamin Williams. He's the regional director for Young Americans for Liberty, and he's a fellow with Henry Hazlitt Project for Education and Journalism. He has a lot of followers on TikTok, Twitter, and he has a lot of interesting things to say about libertarianism. That is why we brought him here to take the opposition on this specific debate topic. Now, as we are mentioning these two factoids, I would like you to whip out your phones now and scan this QR code that you see in the middle. This QR code here will allow you to vote on the following topic. The American Communist Party offers a better alternative to the duopoly. So, the way we run these debates, we have a pre-debate vote where you all vote and you show your opinion, your position, your slant on this specific topic. You can vote either agree, disagree, or undecided. And then at the conclusion of this debate, we will again ask you for a post-debate poll, and then we will see the difference. We will see who is able to sway more people to their side, and that person will be the winner. You got to just zoom in, and you'll be able to scan. No worries, no worries. I'll go to the next slide. It has it in the middle. Yeah, please scan this one, and make your voices heard. And just to explain, let me explain before I get any questions. So the process is as follows. We will have 12 minutes for each one of the two debaters where they introduce their position. So Haz will start with 12 minutes, then it will be followed by Ben for 12 minutes. Then Haz will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. Ben will have 5 minutes for rebuttal. Then we will open it up for the audience questions, the debaters to ask themselves questions, and moderators' prerogative questions. So we will have 40 minutes of that. And then finally, to conclude, we will have 5 minutes each to close out the debate with closing arguments. And during and after the closing arguments, we will get the second poll to find out who won the debate and who was able to sway more voices to their side, more opinions to their side. Okay, with that, let me poll the room. Has everyone mostly voted? We don't need. Okay, great, excellent. Thank you very much. If there's not going to be Wi-Fi, so if you have coverage on your data, if not, it is okay. No worries. So we'll give you 2 more seconds, and as we do that, Haz, we will invite you to come here and prepare yourself. Yeah. Please.
use this or I use... Well, thank you all for coming out tonight. My name is Haz Al-Din. I'm the executive chairman of the American Communist Party. And the topic for tonight's debate... The topic for tonight's debate is whether or not the American Communist Party provides a better alternative to the current duopoly political system in the United States. So, regarding this question, it can be first of all addressed in the political sense of the two-party duopoly as a strictly political system in terms of whether it's a good form of governance or a bad form of governance in comparison to other political systems. Well, we can go to the very founding of this country where the framers, and George Washington in particular, regarded the emergence of political parties themselves as a threat to the very principles of republicanism, which were at the foundation of this country. Republicanism not in the partisan sense, but in the sense of an American republic. The notion that political pluralism in the form of a multi-party democracy is at the foundation of the United States is a myth. It's a neoliberal myth. The founding fathers of this country did not envision a so-called multi-party democracy. They envisioned one united republic where these different factions and political differences were not able to be placed before the interests of the common welfare of the country as a whole in the form of the republic. But the two-party duopoly that we have today is an even greater monstrosity than anything they could have imagined back then, because it's not simply a multi-party democracy where there's different political factions that are bickering. What it is effectively is a system of shifting responsibilities. No one has to take accountability for the fundamental problems at the root of our country, because every 4 years they can simply blame the other party. And despite the fact that both of these parties are funded and serve the same interests, they can pretend and lie to the American public that they somehow represent different alternatives as far as the future of the country is concerned. No one is taking responsibility for this future. Nobody can be held accountable for the perilous future that awaits all of us, in my view, as far as I can see it. We have rents that are rising beyond anything that can feasibly be afforded by the population. We have environmental disasters like Hurricane Helene and now Hurricane Milton, where what do we see? We see federal government inactivity, a lack of response, a lack of care. We see the prospect, the very real prospect, of not only another world war, but a potentially nuclear one. That could be the end of humanity itself. Finally, we're $30 trillion in debt. If we want to talk about providing alternatives to the duopoly system, we have to first of all establish that this system is not just what we're experiencing right now. What we're experiencing right now immediately may not be the worst thing ever. We're not in a state of war. We're not starving. We're not fighting for our survival right now. But who's to say we're not going to have to be faced with such dire circumstances given the trajectory that we're currently on? The illusion that things can go on as normal, given the immense contradictions weighing over our heads, weighing over our society and our world, I think is even more naive than any proposed utopia in its stead. And I want to be clear about something. Our party is not providing as an alternative some meticulously designed utopia or blueprint for a future as though we know better than the whole of the American people. The alternative we're providing isn't just through our words, but through our actions. As small as our party is, our comrades are on the ground in the midst of the aftermath of these hurricanes, providing real assistance to impacted communities. I think that says a lot more. I think that's a lot more than what the federal government is doing in terms of the intention, in terms of the willingness to take the time to sacrifice your own interests for the interests of the community. And while we all cherish some kind of liberal individualism for hedonistic purposes or otherwise, this kind of individualism is only possible in a state of comfort, in a state of easy times, in a state of relative or even illusory prosperity. But when the going gets tough, when our government fails to respond to the challenges that await us as a country, when it's unable to provide a semblance of law and order, when the basic flow of goods and services break down, when we're left to fend for ourselves, how are we going to survive as a people if not through acquiring a type of collective existence, a collective solidarity which historically only communists have been able to provide their populations? We all know the so-called infamous history of communism. And yes, those were harsh and tough times. But what they don't tell you is that those were harsh and tough times before the communists entered the picture. It was the communists that allowed the various peoples of the world at harsh times. And America, whether we communists get our way or not, is headed for tough times. So the question is, what is going to provide an alternative to the confusion, to the disarray, to the lack of a plan, actually? Because the two-party duopoly is not going to survive indefinitely. In its stead, what will take its place? Who is going to provide a solution to this? Well, all I can say for myself and for my party is that we've committed ourselves, at least to the purport, to the intention of wanting to unify the American people as one people, regardless of their various racial and ethnic differences, regardless of their various cultural differences. We want an authentic and organic form of collective solidarity to take the place of the hedonism, the nihilism, and the corrupt individualism which now participates in the destruction of our society today. So,
one more.
All right. So I actually wrote an opening statement, but my documents aren't loading because, of course, we don't have Wi-Fi. Oopsie. Oh, wait, there it is. Let's go. All right. We're so back. All right. So honestly, guys, I'm a little confused as to why I'm here. I know that might sound weird. I'm confused about the whole debate. So it's not that I don't want to be here with you guys. It's not that I have any disrespect towards the organizers. They've done a fantastic job, even better than I anticipated. It's really great. But the topic of this debate is whether or not this brand new political party is a better alternative to the duopoly system, which I'm not a part of, I don't defend. I'm not even a Democrat or Republican. I am not registered to any party. I don't even care that much about this sort of thing, electoral politics, all that. I don't have any real political power, and there is no particular reason why I should be debating this other than the fact our glorious host asked me to. Well, that, or that the American Party is not a better alternative. The word alternative is traditionally defined as of one or more things available as another possibility. That word, possibility, right? That's very important. There needs to be a possibility that this party can do better than the duopoly system, the Republicans and the Democrats. If there was a possibility that the American Communist Party, we're going to say ACP now, from now on, if there was a possibility that the ACP could beat two of the biggest 5 parties in human history, we wouldn't be here. They would be out holding rallies with tens of thousands of people, just like Trump and Harris and Walz. All these people are already doing. They would be out having serious political candidates. They have none. They would actually have a policy platform. That's what real parties have, right? Obviously not Kamala Harris, but you know, that's the exception. So, in my opinion, that's just my opinion, I've won this debate just by being here. frankly. But that's not going to convince all you guys. I'm not done. It's all right. So I'm not going to get ahead of myself. We're going to rewind a little bit. So let's start with a handful of guys. They don't really feel at home in any party, even the Communist Party USA, with its 20,000 members. Very impressive, right? They don't feel at home. They call themselves maga-communist. So they have this sort of social conservatism mixed with the communism. So the left doesn't really like them because they're too conservative, and the right doesn't like them because they're communist. Kind of in a weird position to be in. So you got a mix between like these Christian, Muslim communist, former Groypers, yeah, those are out there. The Joseph Stalin fanboys. And I mean, honestly, they're not really welcome by most groups, obviously, right? I mean, they would admit that. Not on the left or the right. So they're not welcomed by anyone until October 7th, 2023. Hamas launches a secret attack against Israel and takes out over 1,000 civilians and soldiers. The news blows up everywhere. People who haven't heard the words Israel or Palestine in months suddenly can't get away from it. Then Israel responds. The world is met with brutal images of entire city blocks being blown up, bodies lining the street, all these videos of dead children just pulling at people's emotions. Terrible stuff. The world is in shock. And then, out of the chaos, there emerges a new class of people, Twitter influencers. I'm not going to call it X. I'd rather be put in the gulag. So they're sharing all these shocking images, these strong condemnations against Israel, and they start building followings from it. You got Dr. Anastasia Lupus, Sam Smith, Jake Shields, and the maga-communist. They're spamming posts all day. Can we get 10,000 people to comment Free Palestine? Raise your hands if you proudly support Iran. You know, boomer posting. Boomer posting, kind of weird, but it works. It works. They got millions of people to interact with their posts, and their accounts blow up. But none of them more than Jackson Hinkle. The ACPs own Jackson Hinkle. He builds a following, all right. He builds a following of over, he builds a following of over 2.7 million people. So the MAGA communists are now more popular than ever. So popular, some of them are able to be full-time influencers, so now they can post more. Then they take a look around. 2.7 million followers from Jackson Hinkle alone? There must be like maybe 5 million between all of them. That's a lot of people. You can make a difference with 5 million people. That's a lot of people. So maybe we will make a difference. Let's make a political party. The American Communist Party is born. MAGA communists start promoting it all over the place, and they prepare for the flood. The floodgates open, and there's a drought. Nobody shows up. So the problem is they didn't realize that over 99% of their followers were Arabs living in other countries, not in America. Oopsie. They can't vote. I mean, not yet. I was talking to a friend of mine down in Tennessee about this debate, and I was telling him I was debating on this brand new, tiny political party and whether or not it could beat the Republicans and Democrats. And I emphasize this a lot, very small party. Then I asked him, how many members do you think they have in their biggest state, California? He said 300. The real number is 36. In New York, they have 30. Texas, 15. This is not a serious party. It's not a serious movement. I'm sorry, but you don't win political campaigns. You don't win elections with 15 people. Doesn't happen. The Libertarian Party got over 5 million votes in 2016, and that was actually quite impressive for them. They have more candidates nationally than the ACP has members, yet they still don't win anything. Libertarianism is like relatively popular. Communism is not. Communists are a fraction of the American population. Lots of polls show this. But, I mean, these aren't regular communists, as we already established. These guys aren't in the CPUSA. They have their own party. So they're a fraction of a fraction of a fraction. You cannot, there's no possibility, you cannot overtake the Republicans and Democrats with a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of the population. No possibility, no alternative. The CPUSA hasn't won a single federal election, and they haven't won really anything since the 1940s, and they are 100 times bigger than the ACP. The ACP cannot win. They cannot beat the Republicans and Democrats, the duopoly system. But there's two parts of this debate. It's whether or not they're the better alternative. Of course, one hinges on the other, but we're going to talk about the better. What does that even mean? I don't know. Maybe some of you have a guess. I just have to assume that a lot of you might take a more pragmatic approach. Let's talk about quality of life. Will they improve quality of life? Something like that. The ACP are Marxist-Leninists, or MLs. There have been roughly 24 examples of countries run by MLs. A 2018 study examined 44 Eurasian countries. They looked at variables like religion, geography, cultural ancestry, and communism to see their impacts on the Human Development Index, which looks at health, income, and education. The communism variable, it's kind of the same as being run by MLs, right? So the communism variable, the authors found that communism, quote, significantly negatively predicts HDI, income, and health indices. So that's not exactly the type of society that we want here. Mao, Stalin, Pol Pot, these dictators saw millions of people die, millions of people starve to death. We don't want that here. They decimated nations. We shouldn't trust communists. They've failed time and time again. They've proven to us we can't trust them. Why would we trust them now? And of course, the ACP likes these communists, by the way. In a, really, like this devastation that we see, the communists, in many cases, think it's a good thing. They think it's the better thing. So there was actually a live stream on Eddie Liger Smith's YouTube channel. He is one of the co-founders of the ACP. So you haven't heard the next part yet. So Eddie Liger Smith, the one you guys are clapping, he said of the 50 million Chinese people who died under Mao, this is his own quote, that's not a bad thing, end of quote. And then proceeded to justify these tens of millions of deaths by saying life got better later, which is after Mao died. See my point? Several of the founders of the ACP have said things like Stalin did nothing wrong. They think these crimes...
All right, folks, let's pipe her down. Let's let him finish.
They think these crimes and atrocities are a good thing, as proven by the claps you hear. They revel in it. They revel in the death. They enjoy it. It's sick, really sick. Much like their idols, they revel in it. Mao once said, deaths have benefits. They fertilize the grounds. And then proceeded to pledge that he would sacrifice half of China's population for a global revolution. The empirical evidence shows us that communists almost exclusively do something worse, not better. There's no debating the 100 years worth of evidence on that. Anyways, the ACP cannot possibly win, it cannot possibly achieve power, it cannot possibly beat the duopoly system, and even if it did, the communists would be way worse. They always have been.
Thank you, Ben. At this point, Haz, please go ahead. You have 5 minutes for your rebuttal.
So I could count a few things the gentleman here is confused about. He's confused about why he's here for the debate, which confuses me because why show up if you don't know what you're debating about? The second thing he appears confused about is the history and facts pertaining to our party. The third thing he's confused about are the facts of history with regard to the history of communism. But as a teacher, and I think this is the dynamic he set this up to be established as, he's a student and I'm the teacher, I can forgive confusion among my students. And to that extent, I'm willing to be merciful. Now, if you claim that we can't provide an alternative to the duopoly system because our party is too small, although you're kind of getting the details about our numbers wrong, it doesn't matter though. Let's just assume that our party barely had anyone, right? Because for all intents and purposes, it's true. Our party is extremely small relative to the Democrats, the Republicans, the Libertarians, and even other, established third parties. Our party was launched, 3 months ago? So I'm not sure what you're expecting. He says we can't win an election, and therefore our party will never have a future in this country. Well, to that end, I say to you, challenge accepted. We don't have any intention of winning a presidential election. Did Lenin win elections? Did Mao win elections? What communists in history got to power by participating in the sham, bullshit liberal democracy? Excuse my French. We're not here to grow a party just to grow numbers and just to be popular for its own sake. We're here to provide something enduring and sustainable. Our goal isn't to be the most popular party in the country for the next, election cycle. Our goal is to survive. It's to provide a model of collective existence and organization that will outlive what we anticipate to be, and call us crazy if we think this, the collapse of the current system. Now, that is the only purport as far as our party's vision for acquiring victory is concerned. If things can go on indefinitely as they are now, as the gentleman here seems to imply, although his willingness to actually commit to a point is dubious, if that's true, then of course our party wouldn't even exist in the first place. If we thought that the system can just go on forever and things can go on as normal, there would be no problem. There would be no need for a communist party in the first place. But we see the writing on the wall. And regarding the facts of history and, this notion that communists killed 500 trillion people or whatever, listen, I was just in Donetsk about 4 or 5 days ago. I talked to ordinary people whose parents, whose grandparents lived under Stalin. And almost every single one of them, if they weren't 100% pro-Stalin, were at least nuanced about it. And by the way, these are people who represent the living collective memory of communism when it was supposedly at its worst in the 1930s in what was at the time Ukraine at that. So if they're willing to see Stalin as a good guy, if they love Stalin even more than I do and our party does, then maybe what the Western academia and what the Western historians have been telling us throughout the Cold War up to the present, maybe we shouldn't give them the benefit of the doubt. Maybe we should actually evaluate and question whether these things that they say, oh, Mao killed 500 billion people, all this, maybe you should actually think twice about it, because if the recent history of how the federal government, as far as our ability to fact check it and verify its claims is anything to go by, I think at the very least, these claims they're making about history should be called into question. But
Thank you, Haz. Now, Ben. Thank you, Haz. Now, Ben, for your 5-minute rebuttal.
All right, let's just see this. All right, cool. All right, so we'll address his opening statement first. He's slamming the Republicans and Democrats. Naturally, you do that. I do that myself, but that doesn't necessarily matter here. He has to actually present an alternative, which means he has to present a reason, proof, something that shows he can beat them. He did no such thing. Oh, revolutionaries, LARP. Okay, nobody cares about your LARPing. Frankly, 178 IQ, 6'10" Marine would take out your entire party. Like, I'm sorry, it's just true. The revolutionary LARP is over. It's not going to happen. All right, founders didn't want a multi-party system. That's irrelevant to this. Rents are rising. Yeah, I mean, they rose 3 times under Mao. In fact, in the 1950s, Mao got a bunch of his top statisticians to do a study to see if the quality of life improved from the time they took power. All of his statisticians said, nope. So he hid the evidence. Later, archivists found it. So Mao's own party, Mao's own experts said he didn't improve conditions, and rents were rising even more than they are now. So, I mean, yeah, it's bad now, of course. Don't get me wrong, but it was worse under communists. Hurricane and no aid. I mean, that actually reminded me of what Stalin's government did in Ukraine. So you had this massive famine. Millions of people are starving to death. The Ukrainian representatives are sending sending letters to Stalin. You can find these letters online. They're publicly available, begging for aid. And you know what Stalin said? He said no. So don't give me this bullshit about, oh, since we're not giving, since the dirty, filthy Republicans and Democrats aren't giving aid to the victims of the hurricane, that means us dirty, filthy communists are going to be better. It doesn't mean that. They've never been better. Their party isn't advocating for utopia. Could have fooled me. Their party provided aid for people. I mean, good for you, frankly. That's great. I'm happy. That's not going to win you any elections. Sorry. And then the nonsense about, oh, everything was so much worse before the communists took over. I mean, again, Mao's own government, Mao's own experts said that wasn't true. And then things didn't improve until after 1978, after Mao died. And then they abandoned their communist principles. The reason that happened was because a lot of the people, especially the farmers, they were rebelling against the party. And they were saying, we want private property. And the party had to concede. All right, then as for the rebuttal, our party is extremely small. I agree. Again, the promoting revolution, LARP. Trust me, bro. I talked to people, they said Stalin was good. I don't care. And then, question, guys, you gotta question the death tolls. I actually heard that last night. I was debating Holocaust deniers. It sounded kind of familiar. I mean, frankly, like, I never heard any reason why they would be better than the Republicans and Democrats. No evidence, no argument, nothing. So, I mean, I guess I did win.
Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Ben. Thank you, Haz. So at this point, we are going to have 40 minutes for questions and answers. We'll start with the moderator's prerogative. I'll ask some questions, and then after that, we will ask folks to start lining up right there with that mic to ask their questions to the two debaters. And after my questions to you both gentlemen, I would let you also ask each other a question if you want to address something that wasn't addressed. So my first question to Haz. Ben is accusing you and your party of teetering on emotional connections and teetering on October 7th related sentimentalities. Can you address what it is that you have to offer that is an alternative, not just to the duopoly, but what he accused you of the Communist Party that we've all grown and learned about in our academic curricula?
You're saying, do we provide an alternative to the lies that they've told about historical communist states?
Yeah,
I
what
think
are you showing here?
reality suffices to be an alternative already because they're lies. They're complete fabrications. He said something ridiculous that under Mao, living standards didn't improve, and that only after Mao's death did they improve. Then why did people's life expectancy go up? Why did the population increase so rapidly? Why was it that people's caloric intake increased so much? Why did literacy rates go up? Of course, he's going to say these are all lies and fabrications, to which I'm going to respond that he himself is telling lies. So how do we get to the bottom of it? I encourage you to do independent research, because I doubt that there's a single serious historian who's going to maintain the claim, even in the bourgeois academia we have here in the West, that after the 1950s, China did not see drastic improvements in the standard of living of their people. Now, he's said that Stalin and Mao, they committed all these atrocities. Stalin wouldn't provide any relief to the people starving in Ukraine. It's a complete lie. He's talking about letters which actually prove the opposite of what he's trying to say, and I'm sure if we can pull them up right now, we could see that. Again, he's making claims about things we can't litigate directly on the spot right now, but the letters that he's talking about, Stalin, and there's no proof whatsoever that Stalin demonstrated any hesitancy at all in responding to the famine as soon as they heard about it in the central government. Now, we don't have unlimited time to get into this topic, do we? Or
No, we do not. So
Yeah.
at this point, let me ask Ben, do you have anything to comment on that question
Well, yeah, I mean,
specifically?
he's lying. There are many historians who have said the exact opposite. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Good. All right. There are many historians who have said the exact opposite. He just doesn't read them. Kent Deng is a great example. He's written several books on the entire economic history of China, and he brings up these things specifically, where he's talking about the life expectancy, where he's talking about the population growth. He shows that a lot of these talking points just aren't true. So let's take the life expectancy, for example. The reason you see, there's actually two reasons. The two reasons, first reason, you see such a drastic increase in Mao, which is weird because, of course, tens of millions of people died, is because they stopped counting infant mortality rate, right? So there are corrections for this, and the rise drops significantly when you look at these corrections, which, again, Kent Deng, a very reputable economic historian, has written about with Palegrave. And then another thing is he doesn't understand statistics. So there's selection bias. This is something in statistics. So when you have this big population and a lot of the poorest, the sickest people die, these people already had a low life expectancy. Now when they're dead, the rest of the population's average life expectancy appears to be higher. This is very well established in the literature on famines. It happened in the Bangladesh famine. It happened in the Finnish famine. There are dozens of academic papers on this that I have read because I actually bothered doing research on these things instead of saying nonsense like, oh, the Western media is lying. So.
Okay. All right. Thank you. Thank you both. At this point, do you have a question that you'd like to ask Haz? Haz, same for you. Did you have to? Would you like to ask Ben a question, or would you like to open it to the Q&A?
how is it that the famine during the Great Leap Forward is responsible for all the increases in life expectancy when that only lasted 3 years? And moreover, even at the peak of that famine, the mortality rate within China was still not as bad as in India.
I don't see how the first point is relevant at all. I mean, are you arguing that selection bias doesn't exist? You can't argue that. That's ridiculous, right? This is a
You're
very,
trying to
this is a
say
very
that the
strong
only
argument.
reason the life expectancy went up is because
I
Mao.
said two reasons.
Well, one of the primary ones you mentioned is, oh, Mao already just killed all the people who would die anyway.
No.
Well-
It's the people who died in the famine.
Okay, so you're saying that the life expectancy only went up because within the 3 years there was a famine, and let's say millions of people died who were sick and had a low life expectancy already, right? But that was 3 years. When does Mao die?
1976.
Okay, so those 3 years are responsible for the constant, steady rate of growth in the life expectancy throughout the 60s and 70s?
There certainly wasn't a constant rate of growth. I mean, not the huge one. That mostly happened.
But there
close
was
to the
still a
famine.
rate of growth, an observable and significant one. So
right.
it's
There's actually, again, like I said, lots of academic literature on this. There's specifically studies on the life expectancy in China. There's also similar ones on height. So what you see is like average height increased. And there are certain ways that these academics are able to control for these variables. And what they find is, yes, there is selection bias. So this isn't really a debate for me. It's just true,
I
right?
accept your
Selection bias
concession.
is real.
I accept your concession.
All right. So at this point, if you don't have any other questions,
I do have a quick question.
yeah, go ahead. Quick
yeah.
one, and then we'll go
I
to
do
the
have
questions.
a quick question. So if
Go
you're
ahead.
the teacher, why do you keep getting schooled?
All right.
Listen, no. I mean, I can answer that.
You don't have to, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah.
Go
I think
ahead.
my student has this kind of tendency to do what all victors do, as we know, which is to preemptively declare victory without actually acquiring it. So, you're saying that I'm getting schooled. You're saying that you've won the debate. Honestly, from where I'm sitting, it doesn't really seem like signs of someone who's confident that they're winning.
All right. At this point, let's open it up to the Q&A, and let's start with Gene himself. Go ahead, Gene.
A quick, brief personal note that at the Solar Forum over the years, I've had 3 separate debates with prominent members of the Democratic Socialists of America. One of them was with Marxist Professor Richard Wolff, and that has had 6.8 million YouTube views. And he's a Marxist, Democratic Socialist of America. My only simple, tepid question to you, sir, the communist, is I thought they were the only game in town. They do have a fair number of members. how do you differ from the Democratic Socialists of America, which are already established and already pushing socialism?
Thank you for the question. The Democratic Socialists of America are an appendage of the Democratic Party, as far as we see it. They're not actually providing an alternative to the two-party system. They're sheepdogging young people back into the Democrats because they say, this is their talking point, that every 4 years we have to stop fascism. Of course, they regard Trump as a fascist, but not Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, despite that the latter are vicious warmongers. And last time I read the communist literature on the matter, fascism was defined by an aggressive form of imperialism and warmongering, not a refusal to use the correct pronouns in bathrooms and all this stuff. So this is we have many differences with them as well in terms of the woke stuff, the cultural stuff. We don't agree with their outlook, that general demographic they have. And also, this is a very important thing. We are communists with a capital C. We don't call ourselves socialists. We don't try to apologize for what we are. Yes, we are Stalinists. Yes, we're Maoists. Yes, Stalin. Yes, Mao. Yes, communism. And yes, it has been tried and it was great.
Let's give Ben a chance to respond. Ben, go ahead. Would you like to comment on this question asked by Gene?
Like I said at the beginning, the reason they're not part of the Democratic Socialists is because they're not welcome, right? They don't like people like them. They're not welcome anywhere. And it's like, how are you going to build a serious political movement if nobody likes you?
All right, let's take it from the second question. Please keep it short.
Sure. So as a matter of, you've made it to the communist representative, you made a lot of claims, and your only extent of argument seems to be, we can't trust the facts. Do you have actual sources for your arguments? Because it seems to be that we can't trust, and I'll say this point blank, I'm a psychologist who studies conspiracy theories. It's my bread and butter.
Yeah.
So when I hear...
Triple vaxxed?
Triple vaxxed? Yeah, nah, double vaxxed, but,
Also
a Zionist, since I'm going to be calling out things that you're going to fucking hate.
Get to your question.
Oh, blow me.
Get to your question.
But my question stands. What are the sources that I'm supposed to believe? If I'm supposed to only believe not the main sources but communist sources, where are the neutral sources that I'm supposed to look to see that the Great Leap Forward didn't kill 3 million people? Stalin's
response to the hysteria of the Cold War. For example, this is Sheila Fitzpatrick and others in the school. And they will basically respond to these sensational claims that, it was a genocide in Ukraine. I proudly recommend Grover Furr on the matter. His book, Timothy Snyder's bullshit claims about what happened in Ukraine is pretty much all you need to know that the sources that are mainstream are not reliable, because you look at the primary sources and you scrutinize those and they stand on nothing. Regarding all these other claims about communist atrocities and stuff, look, I'll make a commitment to you. Give me your email and I will give you a list of sources. You can even post it publicly if I don't follow up on this, and I'll send it to you. Is that fair?
Okay, Ben, would you like to comment on the question asked?
Yeah, sure. Like I said, you got Kent Dang. He is a prominent economic historian. He's written a lot of books about this. One book I'd really recommend is Capitalism with Chinese Characteristics. You also got Logic of the Market by Wai-Ying Zhang. He's an excellent Chinese. All these people are Chinese economists and historians, by the way. I'm not citing Western sources. So I specifically chose Chinese sources. And like Wai-Ying Zhang, he worked for Deng Xiaoping's government, right? So these aren't Western sources. Logic of the Market, he also has a really excellent paper I recommend everybody read. The China model view is factually false. There's lots of really great sources on China specifically. Now, as for sources on the famine, Tragedy of Liberation, that's a really excellent one. When I was talking about the statisticians, that's something that Frank Decoter, I'm not good with German names, Frank Decoter, I think that's his name, he talks about that. As for the Stalin stuff, Grover Furr, what is he? He's a medievalist. He does like literature, and then they go to this guy as their expert on Stalin. That's not even his field. He's a schizophrenic. He's a weirdo. Maybe listen to the entire historical consensus on this. Maybe, I referenced the actual sources. I referenced the letters, which you can read. They're online. They're publicly available. He lied about them. As far as the aid thing, they only sent aid to areas where they had a lot of soldiers. And you're talking about hundreds of regions in Ukraine, broken up into hundreds of regions. You had only enough aid for less than 30 of these regions. And yes, they denied aid. Stalin said it in his own words. He's just lying.
I guess we'll take your word for it.
No, read the letters.
And we won't read Grover first
doesn't
because
want you
he's
to read
weird and he's schizophrenic.
All right, let's go to the third question. Please go ahead.
Hello. Can you hear me? All right, cool. So, Mr. Ben, right, the Libertarian, I have to ask. According to this quick Google search, China's government spends about $4 billion every year on their federal government, whatever they do. Our government spends about $6 billion, right? And according to Western statistics, they own about 70% of their houses among millennials and about 90% of home ownership amongst all people. This is Western sources. This is Cambridge. Now, my question to you is, why don't we just do what China does? I'm just saying. They got a Marxist-Leninist party, and they're more libertarian than we can ever hope to be.
All right, let's get to the answers. Go ahead.
Honestly, I say let's do what China does.
Hell yeah! Hell yeah!
So, or I should say,
Hell yeah!
All right,
guys.
let's pipe her down.
It's been a great night. Debate's over.
Let's pipe her down.
We won.
That's
it.
Ben. All right, let's calm down. All right, calm down.
So-
All right, would you like to answer the
No,
question?
of course, they
Please
don't
go
want to
ahead.
listen to what I actually say, but
Please.
yeah, we should
All right,
do.
let's get to more questions.
Yeah,
So
the
let's
answer.
keep it going.
We
Please
should do
go
what
ahead.
China did. So, like I recommended earlier, logic of the market. This Chinese economist, he goes
Guys,
over.
please keep it down, please. Please
This
go ahead.
Chinese economist, he goes over all this data and logic of the market, and what you find is that well over 100% of the prices on capital goods, factors of production, were set by the state in 1980. You go to 2008, and it was 12.5%, right? So they are making it to where the market is determining the prices. So, I mean, yeah, we should do that. Great. They also had a housing system. Like I said, you saw rents skyrocketing under Mao when housing was nationalized. But after they privatize it, suddenly more people have housing. Yeah, I agree. Let's do privatization. Let's lower the corporate income tax rate like China did. Let's privatize state-owned businesses like China did. Of course, but you guys don't want to do that. You don't want to actually emulate the things that made China more successful. You want to do all this nonsense that got them in the mess to begin with.
All right, Haz, would you like please go ahead.
So you say let's do what China did and what China's doing. Are you aware that 60% of China's economy is owned by the state? Are you aware?
It used to be
Are you
All
aware?
right, let's let him.
Are you aware that an even greater percentage of China's total GDP comes from their state-owned enterprises?
Absolutely.
Are you committed to the position, therefore, that America should nationalize all of the land, all of the major resources, all of the strategic sectors of the economy and turn these into state-owned enterprises? Because that's part of our platform, actually. So we're
That's not what I
wondering.
said. I mean, it's like he just listened to the first part and then he ignored everything else I said.
No,
Again,
because
communists don't like sources.
you're saying we should be like China. So I agree. Let's have a state bank.
Well,
Let's
I stated
actually
exactly
have.
what we should do, right?
So what
So
is that?
You saying 60% used to be more than that, right? So I'm saying emulate what made them more
But
successful.
the share in terms of the total GDP of the output is an even greater percent when it comes to the share of.
Why would we go more in the
state-owned
direction of what
enterprises.
made them fail in the first place?
Because China's state-owned enterprises continue to be competitive and work very well. That's why.
Okay, and the private ones are still better.
They're actually not.
Yeah, they are.
But
A
the
majority- a
but the
majority of
but the
new
majority of the GDP in China is from the state-owned enterprises.
That's you don't.
So you're picking and
You don't
choosing what you
quantify
like.
the efficiency, and you don't quantify the efficiency of a state versus a private-owned company by how much they contribute to GDP. That's a ridiculous way.
So
to
how
do
do
it.
you quantify it?
Let's one quick response and let's move on.
Yeah, no, that's a ridiculous way to do it.
Okay, let's move on to the fourth question.
Hi,
Please go ahead.
my name is Kayla. I am New York City born and bred, And over here, I went to school in CUNY, where I studied Slavic studies. I took myself to Ukraine. I worked in the Ukrainian American community over here in Veselka for 2 years. I learned a lot about them. And one thing I think you don't really understand is that you keep talking about the genocide that happened in Ukraine, but who are the people that are talking about it? It's people from Lvov, from Ivano-Frankivsk, from Ternopil, but that was part of Poland at the time. Do you know where the genocide, the so-called genocide, or the Holodomor, the famine, it happened in Donetsk, where Haz was recently, and those people still support the communistic system. They still support Stalin. So maybe you should learn exactly where the fuck it happened, because it wasn't in the Soviet Union. But my question is, sorry to bring it back. So you say a lot, oh, you know, communism was a disaster, those people from the Soviet Union didn't like it. So then tell me why in 1991, when there was a referendum passed before the coup, and we say the counter-revolution, the coup that happened in the Soviet Union, they passed a referendum to all of the republics. An average of 77%, they voted to remain and keep the Soviet socialist system.
Okay, there's a question.
In Central Asia, it was 96%, 93%.
Okay, there's a question. 71.
Yeah.
Most people
77.
77. Yes.
Honestly,
Ben, go ahead.
I'm sorry, but I think you're kind of retarded because like,
You see the numbers?
let's talk about. Let's talk about.
All right. Thank you for your question.
So
right.
when we're talking about.
Let's tone it down. Please go ahead, Ben.
Yeah.
Try.
So you guys always like to focus on the.
Guys, let's listen to his response.
So you guys always like to focus on the overall referendum, but you ignore all the referendums that came after that. There was another referendum in 1991 that was in Ukraine only. Over 90% of Ukrainians voted for independence. So either you're a liar or you're just genuinely stupid.
Okay, please, it's fine. We got your question. Please go
the
ahead.
same thing happened in Georgia. The same thing happened in several other of the former Soviet states. Over 90%. You guys can look it up. Look up 1991 Ukrainian referendum. It's online. It's free, actually. Google's free. So as far as talking about the famine, I mean, this argument that, oh, I think maybe some people in the area like Stalin, you know, after all of the other people died 100 years ago, I don't care.
All right,
That's not an
Haz,
argument.
would you like to comment on the question?
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't care because he's living in America, and the people who actually lived under Stalin like Stalin, but his opinion matters more. I mean, it speaks for itself.
All right, for the next question, let's try to
Over
refocus
90%.
the conversation on the actual duopoly and the American system. It seems like you're going to do that. Thank you very much. Please go ahead.
I'm going to try.
All right, please go.
Okay, so this is actually a pleasure. I very rarely get to talk to communists. I actually really like the ACP's website design. It's really good. I will give it that.
To the question, please.
My primary issue with communism is not necessarily how it occurs in practice, but how it occurs in theory. Because conventional economic theory states that the market is effectively trying to solve an optimization problem. The more people that can solve this problem by inserting information into prices, thus make it more efficient. So if you ascribe to something similar to like a Marxist-Leninist viewpoint on economics, why is it that you would disagree with this? Especially when it's supported not just by like the evidence, but also like the science itself with regards to how information is transmitted between people.
Thank you very much.
Your question is why, as Marxist-Leninists, we don't support market economies?
No, my question is why would you not support the theories that market economies can price in information? Is your issue
That they can be, that can
is your
be
issue
what?
with that markets can price in information?
Can price as information?
Can price in information.
Price in information.
Yeah.
I got it. Okay.
And when I'm talking about information, I mean something similar to Shannon entropy if you're familiar with the concept. So like if you're going to take issue with this, it won't necessarily be with like the history or the evidence. It's like literally going to be with the science.
Okay, well,
Please go
I can broadly respond to what you're saying. Look, I think that the very rigid form of state planning in the early Soviet Union and under Mao was necessary for those conditions because they had to build an independent national industrial system from scratch, which is a very crude, just get the steel production up, you know, build the vehicles, build up the military, build up the infrastructure. But then once they accomplished that goal and it was time to actually have a light consumer industry economy, that's when the West really started to, you know, outperform the socialist bloc. And I think that's also, I don't think it's a fact, this is also what corresponds to the rise of information economies, you know, consumerism and so on and so on. And this was just a different era of history that involved the rise of computers. And it's a totally new paradigm of how production occurs. And that is the principal reason why China shifted over to a market type economy, because I think as what you're trying to say, the market provides the necessary price signals and information better than a rigid state-planned economy possibly could. But I would also respond to that by saying, yes, that's true that China's model was much better and it was necessary. But if we get to the essence of the matter, that this is about the rise of computers and the rise of information technology, and ultimately what we talk about is the fourth industrial revolution, why can't we put supercomputers to use and employ cybernetic methods to have a planned economy? This was actually proposed in the Soviet Union. It was called OGAS. Everyone knows the case in Chile. It was Cybersyn. And for one reason or another, there wasn't a political will or initiative to implement this. I think it's very much possible to begin transitioning out from a market-intensive economy with the use of information technology. So this is...
All right. Thank you. Ben, would you like to add a comment on the question?
Yeah, I mean, socialists, communists, they always have to run back to the market economy. They did that in Cuba with the dollarization. They did that in China under Deng Xiaoping. They did that in the Soviet Union with the new economic policy. They just do it time and time again because they kind of have to. The free market economists like Ludwig von Mises have been vindicated time and time again. You know, in 1920, he published Economic Calculations, Socialist Commonwealth. He's talking about pricing on the factors of production. And as I said earlier, 100% of the prices on the 19 to 2008, it's 12.5%. I think it's even lower today. Just the book I'm referencing is kind of older. Might have even increased in recent years. Wouldn't be surprised. But anyways, 1980, you have over 90% extreme poverty rate. 2008, I believe it's somewhere around 20. So Mises, these free market economists have been vindicated time and time again. And the reason they don't want to talk about that is because they bury the communists, they bury the socialists. As for all this nonsense about the computers, oh, they're going to save us. I mean, Project Cybersyn, it had nothing to do with Mises's critique. They weren't responding to Mises's critique. In fact, the communists frequently conceded to it. Bakunin conceded to it, right? So they acknowledged, when Lenin had to introduce the new economic policy, he was basically conceding to it.
Not Bakunin.
Yeah,
Bakunin
my bad. You're correct.
All right.
And just one last note on that, if I couldn't remember what I was saying. Oh yeah, Project Cybersyn. It has nothing to do with Mises's critique. Project Cybersyn was an absolute disaster. I mean, look at the statistics of Chile under Salvador Allende, who was a miserable dictator.
All right, let's let him,
he killed himself, actually. So he shot himself in the head with an AK-47. But so Salvador Allende, real wages fell over 50% under his government. Inflation reached over 600%. It was an absolute disaster. The idea that we should emulate that is just silly.
All right, let's. Thank you, Ben. Let's get to another question. Please go ahead.
Okay. Should I start by introducing myself?
No, just get to the question.
Okay.
We have a lot of questions. Let's go through these quickly.
So Ben, you complained about the ACP being a very small party in membership numbers. Now I also want to ask this to Haz, because I think this is going to be important that Haz answers this. So, although it's only like 100 or so members, like not even 100 in states, I wanted to ask, how many applicants are there to the party? Because I think that the membership numbers is just not enough to really count the success of the party. I think you also need to take into account how many applicants are there. What's the quality of the membership? Is it a quality over quantity issue?
All right, thank you. Haz, could you address the questions?
The membership applicants are overwhelming our director of personnel. It's in the hundreds. And we're very, 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 selective about who we let in and who we don't. It's not a party that's open to the public. There's a certain level of education, competency, good character, and so on that's required. Multiple interviews are necessary. It's not being advertised to the public as far as joining it is concerned, but you're free to watch and see us, grow and stuff. But it's not right now a mass party. We're going with the Leninist model of quality over quantity.
Since I know that PraxBen was complaining about that, so I think that
All right. One question. So let's
yeah.
get to the next person. Thank you.
Can I make a quick note
Yeah,
on
yeah,
that?
Ben,
I mean,
please.
you're not wrong. I mean, that's very much a good point. I was working with the limited data that I had. Certainly, I'm sure they have applicants. I just don't have access to that. From what I found, they have about 200 members in the actual United States. They have some members in Canada too for some reason, but the actual United States, they have roughly 200. As far as applicants, I mean, hundreds. Wow. That debunks everything I said.
That
right.
must be from Dickeder as well, the Chinese historian.
right.
The accuracy of that claim is laughable. Go on.
All right, we have limited time. We have a lot of people, so let's get to questions quickly, please.
I'll make
Go
my
ahead.
question quick then. My question is directed at PraxBen. I'm sure you would describe yourself as anti-establishment. I think that's almost a given in this room. But every time a question about the historical truth of communism, you run to the establishment consensus. And whenever a question about actual historical fact comes up, you run away from taking an anti-establishment position.
The question,
you
please.
appeal directly to the establishment. How can you call yourself anti-establishment or put yourself as a opposition to anything in reality when you do this?
All right, here's your question. Thank you very much. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, I mean, I've never called myself anti-establishment. I guess technically I would be. I just don't like the term because it associates me with like weirdos, schizophrenics, Nazis, communists. I just don't like using the term. I guess, you know, again, like I'm not pro-Republican or Democrat. I wasn't defending them in this debate, as I made clear. I think we could do so much better, but it's clearly not the communists that will do that. So as far as the accuracy of the historical consensus, I mean, I would consider myself a historical revisionist. Many in the Austrian school, Murray Rothbard, Hans Hermann Hoppe, they were, of course, historical revisionists. So I completely agree that the historical consensus could be wrong, but you have to actually make an argument for that. That's the problem here, right? And again, I'm not like citing a bunch of anti-communists. I'm citing the Chinese historians. That's why I cited data from Mao's own government. Like this is, we can get this data from the Chinese government. We can get this data from the communist governments. We can have plenty of actual sources. And I will be happily proven wrong. If you have something to actually prove anything I said
You
wrong.
can also get the data on lifespans that Haz cited.
Well, like I said, I gave you guys references. I want to just finish responding. I gave you guys all the references. Like anybody can come to me afterwards, and you can like give me your number, your email, and I'll send you anything you ask for.
Excellent. We'll have time. We'll have an open bar to discuss all of these. So thank you for your question. Haz, would you like to respond? And Haz would like to ask you a question. If you'd like to accept
Just really quick.
No, but really
yeah.
quick. If you'd like to accept it, you can accept it, but you can also ask him a question. It's up to you, Ben.
So really quick.
Wait, do you accept the question?
Sure.
Okay. And then
Yeah,
you can
I
ask
mean,
him.
you're mentioning Mises and Rothbard and stuff, and they seem to have a very strict definition of what constitutes the real free market capitalism. In your view, has real capitalism ever been tried?
I am not one of the people that would say no. I would say yes,
So where?
it was glorious.
Where?
Like I gave the example of China liberalizing.
So you think China is an example of a Rothbardian capitalist country?
Let him finish, Haz.
So of course, I'm not talking about like a purely free market society, but I mean, yes, America is the richest country in human history because of capitalism. Yes, China became much better than it was under Mao because of capitalism. Because, as I mentioned, one of the big things Mises talks about is the prices on the factors of production, and that's one of the key things we should be looking at.
So if I understand it correctly, just to be clear,
All right.
all of the problems when it comes to capitalist countries are
Yes.
because of socialism,
Yes.
and everything good is
Yes.
the capitalism.
All right. Now, Ben, you have the right to ask him a question, or you can waive it. Up to you.
No, I'm good.
All right. Let's get to the second question. Please go ahead.
So
Quickly, though,
we're
please.
having some trouble over here. Sorry. So kind of going beyond the party membership question, I mean, people in here were, on your side of the argument, Haz, were booing at the DSA. So, I mean, in a country where your economic priors are so universally rejected, how do you build a coalition? And I mean, since you've expressed that you don't foresee taking power via electoral politics, but via revolution, which I would presume would be violent, what makes you think that your ideology would rise from the ashes with such limited subscribers in this country if there were some sort of grander collapse?
All right. Let's get to your answer, Haz.
I'm very happy to see you're concerned about the well-being of our party and its ability to make coalitions and stuff. Look, we actually are willing to build coalitions with people across ideological lines, so long as they can join with us in a united front against the warmongers and against the monopoly capitalist elites. So even libertarians, if they're willing to join with us, we're completely fine with that. So we care more about the concrete issues. The second thing, so no, we're not like a dogmatic or ideologically closed. Regarding the second question of violent revolution and stuff, listen, as the FBI knows, I'll never advocate for violent revolution, only what's legal. And but to your point, we don't think that we're going to get to a point where we're just going to be able to impose our will upon the whole of America without building a very specific relationship with the people. So we're sending our people to small towns. We're sending them to actually work closely with communities and build bridges and relationships with them.
Thanks,
So
Al.
it's a long-term thing. It's not an overnight thing.
Ben, would you like to comment real quick?
Oh yeah, just a real quick thing. So I mean, of course, he's not going to blatantly advocate for revolution, and in the same vein, I'm not going to blatantly advocate for counter-revolution, but I will give a fun factoid that I can shoot better than any communist in this room.
We'll see.
Excellent. Please go ahead.
Yeah, so I just want like a quick point of clarification. In Haz's opening statement, he mentioned that there were a lot of contradictions present in the current system. I just want to know whether it's Haz's position or even the American Communist Party's official position that there can exist contradictions, i.e. that contradictions can be true.
Ah, well, I don't, listen, we don't have to turn this into a philosophy debate. I'll make it very simple for you. You have a contradiction between the need for America to have a manufacturing base, to have strong industry, to have good, well-paying jobs for the people, and on the other hand, the need to maintain the global system where the dollar is the main reserve currency. So that's an example of a contradiction at the heart of the global system, where one is coming at the expense of the other, and it's leading to a lot of political instability and polarization here, as we saw with the rise of Trump in 2015, 2016. So there's no need to, get into kind of debates about propositional logic or whatever. This is concretely what I mean.
Ben, would you like to comment?
Well, I mean, of course, as extensions of the Hegelians, the Marxists think that they're going to take over the country. It's inevitable. It's bound to happen. They're predestined to do it. But honestly, I think that's kind of stupid.
All right, please go ahead.
Yeah, stupid. My question is to this fine gentleman over here. So you mentioned that Kamala Harris and Joe Biden are fascists. I want to know, are you going to expose the same rhetoric as the other left-wing groups? You said you're different. Because I really want to know, do you know the actual definition of what fascism is? Because I wouldn't, even though I don't like Joe Biden and Kamala Harris, I wouldn't call them fascists.
Thanks for the question. Please go ahead, House.
Dimitrov, who is the secretary of the Comintern, this is the working definition of fascism that we use, which is the terroristic dictatorship of the most aggressive and reactionary sections of monopoly capital.
All right, Ben, would you like to comment?
Yeah, I mean, if you actually want to know about fascism, I would recommend reading some Stanley G. Payne, History of Fascism. But as far as the ACP's relation to fascism, it was just a few days ago that Jackson Hinkle tweeted out that the Jews were Christ killers, and Haz's response to this was to shut down the critics
Cry
of that,
about it. Cry
and
about it.
and to say that the party is always right. So it's very similar to the fascists that worship their party. It's a cult. It's a cult. They worship the party's always right. If the party says mass rape the bourgeoisie, they're right.
All right. You can comment in a different question. So let's move on. Let's get another question now.
Hello. I wrote my question before a couple other questions were asked, and so that might affect the. But anyway, so within Marxist-Leninism, violence is an essential, even if not desirable, part of bringing about communism, the dictatorship of the proletariat. The Russian Revolution didn't begin in a party, but in tight-knit, clandestine revolutionary cells, even if organized. Not a party and not through electoral politics. Italian fascism, on the other hand, which is ideological origins in Marxism, began with...
Get to the question, please.
All right. Now, to my knowledge, the ACP is not a clandestine revolutionary movement. How is what the ACP advocates different from the patriotic or nationalist popular movement aimed at class collaboration, any different from Italian fascism, accepting, of course, the traditional communist aesthetic?
How are we different from Italian fascism, you're saying?
Well, in terms of what your end goal is.
Italian fascism had its basis of support in these kind of lumpen criminal elements who were bribed by the ruling imperialist bourgeoisie. We're building our base of support in the working class. So I think it's as simple as that.
All right, thank you. Ben, you can comment as well. Next
Yeah,
person's
there is
getting
this
ready.
common misconception that the Italian fascist and the German National Socialists were like pro-big business. That's complete nonsense. They never had any evidence for that. The little evidence they did have came from, people like William Shire, who cited like made-up nonsense about all these rich people donating to the Nazis. That was promptly debunked by Henry Ashby Turner in his book, Big Business and the Rise of Hitler. And there's a few different people. I'm not going to get too much into the Italian part. But yeah, I mean, honestly, like I could comment kind of on that question, the last one, that the ACP are very similar in their tactics that the fascists were. If you actually study history, they do this whole class collaboration thing. I mean, their founders have explicitly advocated for that. They do this whole, we're pro-small business but anti-big business. So that's exactly what the fascists did. I mean, are they fascist? But they're a lot like them, at least.
All right, so we're almost out of time, so we'll take a couple of questions, and we'll hope that the two debaters will address them in their closing remarks. So please go ahead, and then they'll maybe address your
All right,
comment.
this is a quickie. So I had initially proposed to the owner, the delightful Nick Allen, fisticuffs, but I think we're changing that. How do y'all two feel about doing push-ups v. push-ups? See who the true winner of this battle and the vitalist banner.
That's up to the debater's prerogative after the debate concludes. Stick around, we'll find out.
All right. After the debate, we'll see.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Appreciate it. All right, second question, please go ahead.
Yeah, I'll keep it kind of simple for you.
Please louder if you can.
Yeah, I'll keep it simple for you. How would libertarians achieve revolution?
That's completely
How would they
relevant to the
achieve
debate.
revolution? All right, keep that in the back of your minds, please. Next one.
Hi, so this is mostly for PraxBen. So if communism does nothing but starve and kill and this and that, why did the USA and its allies bother funding death squads across the whole world to kill communist movements or strangle actually existing communist countries until they fell? And if they're so weak, why bother intervening in their countries in the first place? Why not just let them fall on their own if it's so supposedly destined for them?
Okay, thank you.
So
keep that in the back of your mind.
I get this.
Yeah, no, we'll address those later.
Responding later?
In the closing remarks.
Oh, okay,
Yeah.
cool.
Please go ahead.
So my question is, Haz and the American Communist Party are doing mutual aid work. I'm curious if the libertarians have done any direct impact in their communities, and has a libertarian state ever existed?
Thank you all. Thank you all for your questions. At this point, we will open it up for the closing remarks. Haz, you'll start first, and then Ben, you'll close out the
Shouldn't it be
debate.
the opposite, or?
No, it's always the same. Yeah. So you'll start us with the closing remarks, and then after that, we get ready to vote. We will put out the QR code for the second vote. Please go ahead, Haz.
Well, needless to say, I appreciate everyone coming out tonight. I appreciate your questions as well. Some of them are very interesting. But I have to say I'm kind of a little bit disappointed that my opponent basically decided to throw in the towel before it even began, because as I understood, I was debating the negative when it comes to the proposition of this topic. He was not willing to commit to that. So I could say at the very least, no one that I can encounter, no one that I've encountered thus far, has been willing to commit to the view that the two-party duopoly is somehow defensible, or that the current system can somehow go on indefinitely. Now look, I don't expect everyone to have full faith and confidence in the ACP right now at this stage, any more than I expect the American people to right now. All I would ask those who have any kind of good faith in them is to give us the benefit of the doubt. Give us time to prove ourselves. I think in the past 2 or 3 months, we've already done a lot, much more than any other kind of leftist organizations have done, arguably, in over a decade. So I don't think it's particularly fair to kind of hold us to the standard of not being as big as the Democrats or the Republicans right now. We should be judged on the basis of both our intentions and how we're willing to follow through with those intentions in our actual practice and actually what we do. My opponent doesn't have a solution to the problems this country is facing. He only has the view that communism is so horrible and everything is so bad. But ask in the affirmative what the solution is, and he'll come up short. He'll have nothing. When it comes to what does a libertarian society look like? What does a true free market society? He'll nitpick different kinds of societies, which in another instance he'll say as crony capitalism, corporate capitalism. So again, very concretely, I would just open the question up. When the going gets tough, how, except through a new kind of collectivism where the interests of the individual are placed second to the interests of the collective well-being, can a people endure and survive extreme hardship? So with that.
Ben, please, you have 5 minutes to conclude.
Yeah, you know, when you talk to communists, you hear a lot about the literacy rates in Cuba and the Soviet Union and China, the literacy rate, the literacy campaigns. But they don't bother to be literate themselves. The proposition of the debate is not, are Republicans and Democrats bad? Do we have some other solution? No, this is ridiculous. Like, you shouldn't be upset at me for not debating a completely different proposition. Maybe we can come back another day to debate that other proposition, but we're talking about whether or not the ACP is the better alternative, which again includes a possibility of actually beating the duopoly system, right? I have plenty of criticisms of the duopoly system, but all those criticisms are irrelevant, all right? We're talking about an Oxford-style debate. We're not talking about just a casual conversation where I can present all of my solutions. I don't have time to present my solutions, and that's exactly why he brings up nonsense like this. It's not an argument. It's not a way to win a debate. It's just silly. Now, let's see. I mean, frankly, like that last part, I don't know why he wasted his time on that, but I can kind of respond to that last question I got, because I think that is a very important one. I could talk about that for legitimately hours. You know, so he said, why does the CIA, why does the US keep like sabotaging these socialist and communist countries? Well, I mean, it really doesn't. You have several examples of this not happening. Take Tanzania, for example. So in the 1960s, you had Zanzibar and Tanganyika.
Please let him finish.
In the 1960s, you had Zanzibar and Tanganyika. They became Tanzania, and it was led by Julius Nyerere, a hardcore Marxist-Leninist. It became a socialist society. Not only did the US not sabotage them, but they gave them more aid than they were giving any other African nation. Weird how that works. A similar case with Somalia, under Syed Barre, that failed completely. The entire government collapsed in the 1990s. There's many, Burma is another great example. There's many examples of socialism failing on its own. And I actually would say the US government should stop interfering so much. Get rid of the sanctions on Cuba. Get rid of the sanctions. We can agree on that. We can agree on that. That's a crime against humanity. Get rid of those sanctions on Venezuela, because what they do, number one, they're a crime against humanity. They're anti-free market. But also, they give the communists excuses, silly excuses, when we have so many examples of the communists failing in the exact same way in other circumstances without the sanctions. So again, I could talk about that for hours, but there you go.
All right, folks, that concludes our debate. Thank you very much. Now, at this point, whip out your phones and let's get the second vote going. This is the post-debate vote, and it's the same exact process, the same system as the first one. Please just go in and put in your votes, and then we will tally the results and announce them shortly. While we do that, we will, guys, if you can pay attention a little bit more, we have a couple of announcements while you people vote. We'll tell you about upcoming events, and we'll tell you about debates coming up. I'll start with the 23rd.
Thank you so much. Well, this was a spicy night. Like I said up top, this is the first of several next-gen debates we're going to be doing. Our next one is on 10/23, which is going to be asking, should libertarians vote for Kamala Harris? So that should be interesting. Yes, you can check out more of our events, joinyv.org. I want to give a special thank you to Civil, which is streaming this live. We've been getting lots of traction, lots of views and comments, so that's really awesome. Civil will be hosting our platforms. I encourage you to check them out. We'll also be posting this, of course, on YouTube, X, all that good stuff. So yeah, looking forward to doing more next-gen debates. And joinyv.org is where we post everything. Hopefully I've stalled enough for the results, or we need more time? Got them?
Yes, I have the results here now. If we can get drum roll, please. All right, now the pre-vote debate for the agree was 78.3% folks agreed with the motion. And we had 0% disagree with the motion, and we had 21.6% undecided about the motion. And now for the post-debate, we have the following. For the agree, we have 86%. So that is a change. Let me conclude. That is a change of 8%. And then we have, for the disagree, we have 13.6%, which is a change of 13.16%. For our debate purposes, please pay attention. For our debate purposes, we take the difference in changing and who changed the opinions of the most people. And for that, with a 5% majority, Ben takes the win. Congratulations to you both. Thank you all for coming today. And please have at it. Enjoy the open bar. Thank you all for coming.